The hidden gem of Africa. Mozambique unveiled. Right, picture this. You're scrolling through travel blogs, dreaming of your next adventure, and everyone's banging on about Morocco, Kenya, or South Africa. But what if I told you there's a country in Africa that's so incredibly stunning, so rich in wildlife, and so affordable that Europeans are literally packing up their entire lives and moving there permanently? A place where your pension goes 3 times further, where pristine beaches stretch for thousands of kilometers, and where you can witness some of the most incredible conservation success stories on the planet. Well, mate, let me introduce you to Mozambique. And I'm not talking about just another holiday destination here. I am talking about a country that has been flying completely under the radar, whilst offering everything you could possibly want from an African adventure, and then some. By the time we're done today, you're going to understand why this might just be the best kept secret on the entire continent. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mozambique, where's that then? And why haven't I heard more about it? Well, that's exactly the point, isn't it? Whilst everyone else is queuing up for overpriced safaris in Kenya or fighting for space on South African beaches, Mozambique sits there quietly, offering the same experiences for a fraction of the cost and with barely any crowds. But here's the thing that's absolutely mind-blowing. This isn't just some underdeveloped backwater we're talking about. This is a country that's actively bringing species back from extinction, where conservation efforts are so successful that animals that disappeared decades ago are now thriving again. We're talking about a place where the infrastructure might be basic in parts, but the natural wealth is so extraordinary that it makes up for everything else. Let's start with something that'll knock your socks off, shall we? Mozambique has created protected areas that cover more than 12% of the entire country. 12%. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the same as saying more than 1/8 of the entire nation is dedicated purely to wildlife conservation. We're talking about 6 national parks and 6 national reserves, each one offering a different slice of African wilderness that most tourists never even know exists. The crown jewel of these protected areas is the Gorongosa National Reserve. Now, when I say this place is massive, I mean absolutely enormous. We're talking about an area so vast that it could swallow several European countries whole. And what's living in this incredible wilderness? Well, pretty much everything you'd want to see on an African safari and more. Picture yourself driving through endless landscapes, where lions patrol their territories with the confidence of absolute monarchs. These are Ianzu lions, or even the slightly jaded big cats you might encounter in more touristy areas. These are wild African lions living exactly as nature intended, hunting, roaming, and ruling their domain with an authority that'll send shivers down your spine. But the lions are just the beginning. Leopards move through these territories like shadows, so elusive and perfectly adapted to their environment that spotting one becomes a genuine achievement. These are some of the most beautiful predators on the planet, with rosette patterns so intricate they look like living art. And they re-thriving in Mozambique as protected areas in numbers that would make other African countries green with envy. Then you've got the elephants. Now, African elephants are incredible wherever you see them. But there's something special about encountering them in Mozambique. These massive, intelligent creatures move through the landscape in family groups, with the older matriarchs leading the way, and the younger ones learning the ancient migration routes that have been used for thousands of years. The sound of a herd of elephants moving through the bush, with their gentle rumbling communications and the breaking of branches, is something that stays with you forever. Buffalo herds thunder across the plains in numbers that seem impossible until you see them with your own eyes. We're talking about thousands of these massive, powerful animals moving together in coordinated groups that look like something from a nature documentary, except this is happening right in front of you in real time. The zebras in Mozambique are particularly stunning. With stripes so perfectly defined, they look like they've been painted by an artist with infinite patience. Watching them graze in the early morning light, with the African sun creating dramatic shadows through their distinctive patterns, is the kind of moment that makes you realize why people fall completely in love with this continent. And then there are the wild dogs. Now, African wild dogs are incredibly rare across the continent, but Mozambique's conservation efforts have created safe havens where these remarkable predators can flourish. These aren't your typical domestic dogs gone wild. These are highly sophisticated pack hunters with incredible social structures, unique coat patterns that make each individual instantly recognizable, and hunting strategies that are so effective they make other predators look amateur by comparison. But here's where the story gets absolutely incredible. And this is something that demonstrates just how seriously Mozambique takes wildlife conservation. Decades of civil war and habitat destruction had devastating effects on the country's wildlife populations. Species that had lived in these areas for millions of years were pushed to the brink of extinction or disappeared entirely. Take giraffes, for example. These magnificent animals, with their impossible necks and gentle personalities, had virtually vanished from Mozambique. The combination of civil conflict, habitat loss, and uncontrolled hunting had reduced their numbers so dramatically that many people thought they might never return to these lands. But here's the remarkable part. Through dedicated conservation efforts and careful reintroduction programs, giraffes are back in Mozambique. We're not talking about a token few animals kept in a small enclosure somewhere. We're talking about approximately 250 South African giraffes that are now living wild and free in Mozambican territory, breeding successfully and slowly building back the populations that were lost. Imagine seeing your first giraffe in the wild after they've been absent from the landscape for decades. Picture the moment when conservation teams realized that their efforts were working, that these gentle giants were not only surviving but actually thriving in their restored habitats. It is the kind of conservation success story that gives you genuine hope for the future of African wildlife. But the giraffe story, incredible as it is, pales in comparison to what's happened with rhinoceros populations in Mozambique. 40 years ago, rhinos went completely extinct in the country. Completely extinct. These prehistoric-looking creatures, which had survived ice ages, continental shifts, and millions of years of natural selection, were wiped out entirely due to poaching and the chaos of civil war. For 4 decades, Mozambican landscapes that had echoed with the sounds of rhinos for millions of years fell silent. An entire species, with all its complex behaviors, its crucial role in the ecosystem, and its magnificent presence, was gone. Many people assumed that was it, that rhinos would never again roam the forests and savannas of Mozambique. But in 2022, something absolutely extraordinary happened. 20 white rhinos and 7 black rhinos were carefully transported from South Africa to various national parks across Mozambique. This wasn't just moving a few animals from one place to another. This was literally bringing a species back from local extinction, giving them a second chance to reclaim territory they'd been forced to abandon. Think about the complexity of such an operation. These are massive, potentially dangerous animals that needed to be carefully sedated, transported across international borders, and then gradually introduced to new territories. Every aspect had to be perfectly planned, from ensuring the habitat was suitable to making sure there were adequate protection measures in place to prevent the same fate befalling them again. The reintroduction wasn't just about putting rhinos back where they belonged, although that was obviously important. It was about restoring entire ecosystems. Rhinos aren't just impressive animals to look at. They're what conservationists call a keystone species. They shape their environment in ways that benefit countless other species, from the paths they create through dense vegetation to their role in seed dispersal. White rhinos, in particular, are incredible landscape architects. These massive herbivores are actually grazers, spending their days methodically cropping grass in a way that creates perfect conditions for other species. Their grazing patterns create a mosaic of different grass heights and densities that benefit everything from small birds to large mammals. Black rhinos, on the other hand, are browsers, preferring to feed on bushes, trees, and shrubs. Their feeding habits help maintain the balance between grassland and forest, preventing any one type of vegetation from completely dominating an area. When you remove rhinos from an ecosystem, you don't just lose the rhinos. You lose all the subtle ways they've been managing the landscape for millions of years. But here's the sobering reality that Mozambique continues to face. And it is something that affects conservation efforts, not just in this country, but across the entire African continent. Poaching remains a massive, ongoing threat that conservationists and park rangers deal with every single day. The numbers are staggering and, frankly, heartbreaking. Rhino horn can sell for anywhere from 3,600 to 17,000 pounds per kilogram on the black market. To put that in perspective, rhino horn is literally more valuable than gold, platinum, or cocaine. The primary markets driving this insane demand are China and Vietnam, where rhino horn is used in traditional medicine despite the fact that, scientifically, rhino horn has absolutely no medicinal properties whatsoever. It's made of keratin, the same substance as human fingernails. The tragic irony is that people are paying enormous sums of money for something that has no more medicinal value than chewing your own fingernails, whilst magnificent animals are being slaughtered to extinction to supply this completely pointless demand. It's one of the most frustrating aspects of wildlife conservation in Africa today. To combat this threat, conservationists in Mozambique and across Africa have had to resort to desperate measures. One of the most widely used techniques is called where rangers carefully sedate rhinos and then file down their horns to make them less attractive to poachers. Now, this might sound extreme, but the reality is that dehorning doesn't hurt the rhinos at all. The horn is essentially like a massive fingernail, with no nerve endings in the part that's removed. The rhinos can continue with their normal behaviors, and the horn does grow back over several years. But here's the truly heartbreaking part. Even dehorned rhinos aren't completely safe from poachers, because what poachers are really after is the weight of the horn. Some are still willing to kill rhinos even when the horns haven't fully grown back. The calculation is simple and brutal. Even a partially regrown horn has some value, and dead rhinos can't fight back or escape. This means that conservation in Mozambique isn't just about creating beautiful national parks and reintroducing species. It's about maintaining constant vigilance, employing armed park rangers, using high-tech surveillance equipment, and working with international law enforcement to try to shut down the criminal networks that drive the illegal wildlife trade. If you're someone who cares deeply about animal welfare and conservation, Mozambique actually offers some incredible opportunities to get directly involved in these efforts. There are numerous organizations operating in the country that offer volunteer programs specifically focused on rhino protection and broader wildlife conservation. These aren't your typical gap-year volunteering experiences where you spend most of your time taking Instagram photos. These are serious, hands-on conservation programs where volunteers work directly with experienced rangers and conservationists on real, ongoing projects that make a genuine difference to wildlife populations. You might find yourself involved in everything from monitoring animal movements using GPS tracking technology to helping with the practical aspects of running anti-poaching operations. Some programs focus on community education, working with local villages to develop sustainable alternatives to poaching that provide better long-term economic benefits. Others concentrate on the scientific side of conservation, collecting data on animal behavior, population numbers, and ecosystem health. That helps inform broader conservation strategies. There's also a strong focus on rehabilitation work, caring for animals that have been injured by poachers or caught in snares, and then releasing them back into the wild once they've recovered. But let us shift gears for a moment and talk about what life is actually like for people who choose to make Mozambique their home. Because this is where things get really interesting. For anyone considering a major life change, one crucial advantage is that most doctors in Mozambique speak Portuguese and English, which eliminates the language barrier that can be such a problem in medical situations. However, certain medications that are readily available in Europe might be harder to source in Mozambique. So, anyone with ongoing medical conditions needs to plan ahead and ensure they can maintain their treatment regimens. Medical insurance becomes absolutely critical in Mozambique, not just for the obvious reasons, but because of how the payment system works. If you're involved in an accident or need emergency treatment, you might well be required to pay upfront before receiving care, even in life-threatening situations. Having comprehensive medical insurance that is recognized by local healthcare providers can literally be a matter of life and death. But there's one health consideration that absolutely cannot be ignored if you're replanning to spend any time in Mozambique, and that's malaria. Malaria is endemic throughout the country, meaning it's a constant, ongoing threat that you need to take seriously every single day. One crucial advantage is that most doctors in Mozambique speak Portuguese and English, which eliminates the language barrier that can be such a problem in medical situations. However, certain medications that are readily available in Europe might be harder to source in Mozambique. So, anyone with ongoing medical conditions needs to plan ahead and ensure they can maintain their treatment regimens. Medical insurance becomes absolutely critical in Mozambique, not just for the obvious reasons, but because of how the payment system works. If you're involved in an accident or need emergency treatment, you might well be required to pay upfront before receiving care, even in life-threatening situations. Having comprehensive medical insurance that is recognized by local healthcare providers can literally be a matter of life and death. But there's one health consideration that absolutely cannot be ignored if you're replanning to spend any time in Mozambique, and that's malaria. Malaria is endemic throughout the country, meaning it's a constant, ongoing threat that you need to take seriously every single day. This is like visiting a country where there is a small risk of getting a stomach bug or picking up a cold. Malaria is a potentially deadly disease that kills hundreds of thousands of people worldwide every year. And Mozambique has one of the highest transmission rates in Africa. Taking preventative medication is absolutely essential. But it's not a magic bullet. You also need to be incredibly vigilant about protecting yourself from mosquito bites at all times. This means using hydite insect repellent, wearing long sleeves and trousers during dawn and dusk, when mosquitoes are most active, sleeping under treated bed nets, and being generally aware of your The good news is that with proper precautions, malaria is entirely preventable. Millions of people live and work in malaria-endemic areas without ever contracting the disease. But it does require constant awareness and consistent implementation of protective measures. Now, let's talk about getting around Mozambique, because this is where the adventure really begins. and where you start to understand both the challenges and the incredible rewards of life in this remarkable country. Mozambique has approximately 30,000 kilometers of roads. Now, that might sound like quite an extensive network until you learn that only 5,600 kilometers of those roads are actually paved. That's less than 20% of the total road network. And most of those paved roads are concentrated around Maputo and other major urban centers. What this means in practical terms is that if you want to explore Mozambique properly, if you want to see the incredible wildlife, areas, the stunning beaches, the remote communities, and the natural wonders that make this country so special, you're going to need a proper four-wheel drive vehicle. This isn't a case of, oh, it might be nice to have a bit more ground clearance. This is essential. Many of the roads outside major urban areas aren't really roads in the European sense at all. They're tracks, often sandy or muddy, depending on the season, with river crossings, steep gradients, and conditions that would challenge even experienced off-road drivers. But here's the thing that makes it all worthwhile. Once you've got that four-wheel drive capability, once you're prepared for the adventure of navigating Mozambican roads, you gain access to some of the most spectacular and untouched landscapes on the African continent. You can drive 4 hours through areas where you might not see another vehicle, where the only signs of human presence are the occasional traditional village or the distant smoke from cooking fires. There's also a railway network spanning about 3,100 kilometers, which provides an interesting alternative for both locals and Mozambican railways have a fascinating history, dating back to the colonial era when they were primarily built to transport goods to and from the interior. Today, they provide a relatively affordable way to cover long distances, although the journey times can be quite lengthy and the level of comfort variable. Traveling by train in Mozambique is definitely an adventure in itself. You'll share carriages with local families, traders carrying goods to distant markets, students heading to universities, and an incredible cross-section of Mozambican society. It's one of the best ways to get a real sense of how ordinary Mozambicans live and travel. And the conversations you'll have during these long journeys can provide insights into the country that you'd never get any other way. But let's address the elephant in the room here, because it's important to have a realistic understanding of Mozambique's economic situation and how it affects daily life in the country. Mozambique is undeniably one of the poorest countries on the African continent. This isn't something to gloss over or ignore. It is a reality that affects every aspect of life in the country and helps explain both the challenges and opportunities that exist there. The poverty isn't just about statistics or GDP figures. It's visible in the infrastructure, in the limited availability of certain goods and services, in the educational and healthcare challenges we've already discussed, and in the daily struggles that many Mozambicans face to meet their basic needs. But the economic situation is also shaped by factors beyond the control of ordinary The country is regularly affected by devastating natural disasters, particularly droughts and cyclones that cause massive flooding in coastal areas. These aren't occasional inconveniences. They're regular, predictable challenges that the country has to plan for and recover from repeatedly. Climate change is making these natural disasters more frequent and more severe. Cyclones that might have been manageable a few decades ago now arrive with unprecedented intensity, destroying infrastructure, disrupting agriculture, and forcing hundreds of thousands of people to flee their homes. The droughts, meanwhile, affect not just individual families, but entire regions, destroying crops, killing livestock, and creating food shortages that can last for months or even years. When your economy is heavily dependent on agriculture, as Mozambique's is, these climate-related disasters have effects that ripple through every sector of society. Despite these challenges, or perhaps because of them, Mozambicans have developed remarkable resilience and resourcefulness. The population is generally concentrated in areas that offer the best combination of natural resources and climate conditions. Most people live either in the coastal regions, where fishing provides both food and income, or in the fertile Zambezi River Valley in the north, where agriculture is most productive. This population distribution makes sense when you understand Mozambique's geography and climate. The coastal areas benefit from the moderating influence of the Indian Ocean, whilst the Zambezi Valley offers some of the most fertile soil in the country, fed by regular flooding that deposits nutrient-rich sediment across vast areas. But it's the wildlife that really demonstrates the incredible potential of this country, and the diversity of species that call Mozambique home is absolutely staggering. We've already talked about the big game species, but the variety of life extends far beyond the animals that typically feature in safari brochures. Water buffalo move through the wetlands in massive herds, their presence helping to maintain the delicate balance of these crucial ecosystems. Wild boars root through the forests, playing an important role in soil turnover and seed dispersal. Baboons demonstrate complex social behaviors that rival those of human societies, whilst antelopes of every size and description fill ecological niches from the tiniest dikes to massive eels. The hippos deserve special mention because they're one of Africa's most underestimated species. People tend to think of hippos as fat, lazy animals that spend all day wallowing in water. But the reality is far more complex and impressive. Hippos are actually highly territorial, incredibly dangerous when threatened, and play a crucial role in aquatic ecosystems. During the day, hippos remain submerged in rivers and lakes, but at night they emerge to graze on surrounding grasslands. A single hippo can consume up to 40 kilograms of grass in a single night, and their movement between water and land creates pathways that are used by countless other species. But here's something that might surprise you. The deadliest animal in Mozambique isn't actually a hippo. Despite their fearsome reputation, it isn't a lion, leopard, or even a crocodile. Although all of these animals do pose genuine dangers to humans, the deadliest animal in Mozambique is actually a tiny mosquito species called Plasmodium. This particular mosquito is responsible for transmitting the most deadly form of malaria, and it kills more people in Mozambique each year than all other dangerous animals combined. It's a sobering reminder that in Africa, the biggest threats to human life often come from the smallest creatures. That said, there are certainly larger animals that pose significant risks. Crocodiles are responsible for several dozen deaths each year in Mozambique, with the majority of victims being women and children who visit rivers to bathe, collect water, or wash clothes. Nile crocodiles are incredibly patient predators, capable of remaining motionless for hours before launching lightning-fast attacks that their victims rarely see coming. The snake population is equally impressive and potentially dangerous. Mozambique is home to massive pythons that can grow to lengths exceeding 6 meters, capable of swallowing prey as large as small antelopes. There are also numerous venomous species, including various vipers and cobras, each perfectly adapted to their particular environment and hunting style. But it's not all about dangerous animals. The bird life in Mozambique is absolutely spectacular, particularly in the wetter regions of the northwest. Flamingos gather in massive flocks that can number in the tens of thousands, creating one of nature's most spectacular displays. Cranes, storks, and herons wade through wetlands with an elegance that makes every movement look like carefully choreographed dance. Pelicans demonstrate remarkable fishing techniques, working together in coordinated groups to drive schools of fish into shallow water where they can be easily caught. Ibises probe the mud with their distinctive curved beaks, searching for invertebrates and small crustaceans that most other birds would never detect. The economic foundation of Mozambique rests heavily on agriculture and fishing, sectors that employ more than 80% of the population. This isn't mechanized, industrial-scale agriculture of the type you might see in Europe or North America. Much of it is small-scale, family-based farming that uses techniques passed down through generations. But don't let the traditional methods fool you into thinking this is primitive or unproductive agriculture. Mozambican farmers have developed incredibly sophisticated understanding of their local environments, knowing exactly when to plant different crops, how to manage soil fertility without artificial fertilizers, and how to maximize yields, even in challenging climatic conditions. The country's main agricultural exports tell the story of its natural advantages. Shrimp farming along the extensive coastline takes advantage of the warm waters and rich marine ecosystems of the Mozambique Channel. Cotton grows well in the drier interior regions, whilst sugar and citrus production benefits from the combination of fertile soils and abundant sunshine. Mozambique is also one of Africa's largest producers of cashew nuts, an industry that provides income for hundreds of thousands of small-scale farmers. Cashew trees are particularly well-suited to Mozambique's climate, requiring minimal irrigation, whilst producing nuts that command high prices on international markets. But there's another side to Mozambique's economy that's increasingly important and potentially transformative. Mining plays a significant role, particularly the extraction of gold and tantalum, a metal that's essential for modern electronics. Every smartphone, tablet, and laptop contains tantalum, making Mozambique's deposits potentially very valuable as global demand for electronic devices continues to grow. The mining industry brings both opportunities and challenges. On the positive side, it provides employment, government revenue, and foreign currency earnings that can be used to fund development projects. On the negative side, mining can be environmentally destructive and often benefits international companies more than local communities. Most Mozambicans still live in rural areas rather than cities, and this rural lifestyle often means living in traditional structures that have been used in the region for centuries. These aren't primitive dwellings. They're sophisticated designs that are perfectly adapted to local climate conditions, using locally available materials and construction techniques that have been refined over generations. Traditional huts are designed to remain cool during hot weather, to shed rainwater effectively during the wet season, and to be rebuilt quickly and cheaply when necessary. They represent thousands of years of architectural evolution, creating living spaces that are perfectly suited to their environment without requiring any of the energy-intensive heating or cooling systems that are essential in European-style buildings. The linguistic diversity of Mozambique is absolutely fascinating and reflects the complex history and cultural richness of the country. More than 80 languages are spoken throughout the territory, making it one of the most linguistically diverse countries in Africa. Swahili is widely used in the northwestern parts of the country, reflecting historical connections with the Swahili coast and centuries of trade relationships with Arab and Persian merchants. Shona is the primary regional language along the border with Zimbabwe, whilst Sangha is predominantly spoken in the southern regions. Portuguese serves as the official language and is taught in all schools, a legacy of the colonial period that continues to shape education and government throughout the country. However, for most Mozambicans, Portuguese is a second or third language, with their first language being one of the many indigenous languages that were spoken in the region long before European colonization. This linguistic diversity isn't just academically interesting. It reflects the cultural richness and complexity of Mozambican society. Each language represents a different cultural group with its own traditions, customs, and ways of understanding the world. The survival of so many indigenous languages despite centuries of colonial pressure demonstrates the strength and resilience of traditional Mozambican cultures. The geography of Mozambique provides some incredible natural advantages that have shaped both its history and its potential for future development. The extensive coastline along the Mozambique Channel offers some of Africa's finest natural harbors, strategic positions that have made the country a crucial player in Indian Ocean maritime trade for centuries. These harbors aren't just economically important, they're also stunningly beautiful. The combination of deep, protected waters and dramatic coastal landscapes creates some of the most spectacular seascapes you'll find anywhere in the world. The harbors are busy with everything from traditional dhows that have been sailing these waters for centuries to modern container ships carrying goods between Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The white, sandy beaches that stretch along much of Mozambique as coastline are becoming increasingly important for the country's growing tourism industry. These aren't the crowded, developed beaches you might find in more established tourist destinations. Many of Mozambique's beaches remain completely pristine, with no development whatsoever, offering visitors the rare experience of having miles of perfect tropical beach entirely to themselves. The fertile soils in the northern and central regions represent enormous agricultural potential that's only beginning to be realized. These areas receive adequate rainfall during the wet season, have good drainage during the dry season, and benefit from regular flooding that deposits nutrient-rich sediments across vast areas. The Zambezi River system is particularly important, providing not only water for irrigation, but also the foundation for a potentially significant hydroelectric power industry. The river's massive flow and steep gradients in some areas create ideal conditions for generating clean, renewable electricity that could not only meet Mozambique's domestic needs, but also provide valuable exports to neighboring countries. However, realizing this natural potential hasn't been straightforward, and this brings us to one of the most tragic chapters in Mozambique's recent history. The country's complicated political situation following independence prevented its people from enjoying their natural advantages and developing a stable, prosperous economy. After gaining independence from Portugal in 1975, Mozambique immediately found itself embroiled in a devastating civil war that would continue for nearly 2 decades. The Marxist government, backed by the Soviet Union, fought against anti-communist forces that were funded and supplied by South Africa and the former Rhodesia. This wasn't just a political conflict. It was a proxy war that reflected the broader Cold War tensions of the time. Mozambique became a battlefield where international ideological conflicts were fought out using Mozambican lives and resources. The human cost was absolutely staggering. The Civil War, which began in 1977 and didn't end until 1992, displaced 4 million people from their homes and resulted in the death of an additional 1 million due to violence, hunger, and disease. To put these numbers in perspective, this represents nearly a quarter of the country's entire population killed or displaced by the conflict. But the effects weren't limited to human casualties. The war devastated the country's infrastructure, destroyed schools and hospitals, and made normal economic activity impossible across vast areas. Perhaps most tragically, from a conservation perspective, the conflict resulted in the destruction of approximately 90% of large mammals in some of the country's national parks. Soldiers from both sides hunted wildlife for food, sold ivory and rhino horn to buy weapons and supplies, and laid landmines throughout wildlife areas that continued to kill both animals and people long after the war ended. Entire species populations that had taken millions of years to evolve were wiped out in less than 2 decades of conflict. The end of the Civil War in 1992 didn't immediately solve these problems. The effects of such prolonged conflict persist to this day, influencing everything from economic development to social structures to environmental conservation. Rebuilding a country after such devastation is a process that takes generations, not years. Understanding this history is crucial for anyone trying to understand modern Mozambique. The challenges the country faces today, from poverty to infrastructure deficits to conservation needs, can't be separated from the legacy of those devastating war years. But what's remarkable is how much progress has been made despite these enormous challenges. The historical roots of Mozambique extend far deeper than the colonial period or even the Civil War. Archaeological evidence suggests that the region has been inhabited since at least the 4th century BC, making it one of the oldest, continuously inhabited areas in Africa. The first coastal settlements were established in the 9th century AD, during a period when Swahili culture was spreading down the East African coast. These early settlements weren't isolated communities. They were part of extensive trade networks that connected the African interior with the Middle East, India, and eventually China. Gold, ivory, and other valuable goods flowed from the African interior through these coastal settlements to distant markets, whilst manufactured goods, spices, and new technologies flowed in the opposite direction. These trade relationships were sophisticated and mutually beneficial, creating prosperous communities that left behind impressive architectural and cultural legacies. The arrival of Vasco da Gama in 1498 marked the beginning of Portuguese involvement in the region, but it didn't immediately end the existing trade relationships or cultural patterns. Initially, the Portuguese were just another group of traders competing for access to the region's valuable resources. The port cities that da Gama encountered helped the Portuguese establish trade centers throughout the Indian Ocean. But Portuguese control over Mozambique developed gradually over several centuries. It was one until much later that Portugal established the kind of direct colonial control that would eventually define Mozambique's relationship with Europe for nearly 500 years. Mozambique didn't gain independence from Portugal until 1975, making it one of the last African countries to throw off colonial rule. This long period of colonial control had profound effects on the country's development, creating economic structures that were designed to benefit Portugal rather than the local population. From a cultural and historical perspective, Mozambique Island deserves special recognition as the only site in the country that is currently included in UNESCO's World Heritage List. This island city, located in Nampula Province, represents a unique fusion of African, Arab, and Portuguese architectural and cultural influences. The island is home to the São Sebastião Fortress, one of the oldest and best-preserved Portuguese fortifications in Africa. This massive stone structure was built to protect Portuguese trading interests and served as a crucial strategic point in the Indian Ocean trade networks for centuries. Walking through Mozambique Island today is like stepping back in time. The narrow streets are lined with buildings that reflect. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!